Welcome back, Bears fans, to another episode of the Bears Brothers podcast, and welcome to our Meet the Panthers episode as we kick off preparation for our Week 7 matchup against Carolina. I'm your host, Will DeWitt, joined by my fellow Bears brother, Brandon Hazlett, and today we have Tony Dunn, the host of the C3 podcast, to give us a firsthand scouting report of the 4-2 Carolina Panthers. Tony, thanks for joining us. It's a pleasure to have you on. I look forward to our weekly shows having guests from other podcasts on. How are you going today? How's it going?
Great, man. Thanks for having me on the show.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate you again taking the time this evening. I'm excited to learn more about the Panthers. I know Brandon is, and so is our audience. And we just have like 6-7 questions. So let's just kick things off. And I'll go ahead and start with my question. And on the year, Carolina, they have struggled moving the ball on the ground. And really, when you look at it, they have a pedestrian running attack. Through 6 games, Carolina is only averaging 3.4 yards per rush as a team and less than 100 yards per ground on average per game. And that average of 3.4 is a little skewed from Cam Newton because your two running backs, Jonathan Stewart and Christian McCaffrey, they're only averaging 2.8 yards per carry, which is surprising when I look at that. And combined, they have 0 rushes that have gone for over 20 yards. So my question for you, Tony, is why has Carolina struggled to get their two backs going in the early part of this season?
That's a question I think we're all struggling to answer ourselves. I guess the easy point is to Ryan Khalil have missing time at center. I mean, you got a Pro Bowl center in the middle who calls out the protections, and it's just kind of hard to fathom that one player can mean so much to a line. But you get a backup with Tyler Larson, and I think you lose a lot of leadership on that offensive line. You've got a third-year player in Darrell Williams on the right side who is marginal. And then you've got the most controversial player from where you guys live, from Minnesota, obviously not Chicago, you know him well, but Matt Khalil.
Yes.
You guys know him. I'm sure you've made plenty of fun of him. All the way down to North Carolina, people are still making fun of him. And I think that, I think offensive lines, they require a lot of synergy. And it just doesn't seem we have that. The strange thing is you raise this, is you would think that run blocking would be easier than pass blocking. But that's not the case, obviously, because the Panthers – can pass block all right, it seems. It's just they cannot get any push on the offensive line, and it is translating. I think you get a little aging Jonathan Stewart. He's over 30 years old, so there's a lot of tread worn on those tires. You got Christian McCaffrey, who is new, and, I'm sorry, it's just not every rookie seems to explode like Dalvin Cook was for Minnesota, or Tariq Cohen, even though that's ridiculous what he's doing. So I don't know really. I think there's a lot of factors going on, but it's just not working.
Sure.
So when it comes to sticking with the offense, Cam Newton this year, he's completing 65.4% of his passes so far this season. Last season, he only completed barely 53%, actually less than that, 52.9%. And for his career, he completes 58.8%. So what's been the difference with his game this year? Maybe it's offensive game planning, or maybe even the offensive line you just touched on, being better at pass pro. But what's given him that success as far as completion this year?
Yeah, I think that offensive line play is that they have been pretty good at pass protection, and Cam Newton has been a lot better than the numbers have said when he has had protection. The problem is that the Carolina Panthers have not opted to protect him at all through his career. And so when you see those numbers about him taking all the hits, the most ever in the history of football, those aren't on running plays alone, folks. Cam Newton has been getting beat up. We've trotted out just garbage player after garbage player at left tackle, marginal player at right tackle. And then when they get hurt, we move them all around and it's even worse. So Cam Newton, when he gets time, he is great. He's a momentum player, and he's gotten momentum. And I think here is his numbers are actually better than that 64%. If you kind of discount those first 2 games, Cam Newton missed all of training camp, rehabbing a shoulder injury that he had surgery in the offseason for, a late shoulder cuff repair, rotator cuff, repair that they didn't do until March or April, I believe. And so he was kind of on schedule, then behind schedule, and then they rested him a lot. And he was very rusty to start those first 2 games. But over the last 3 weeks, I'd have to look up the Bears numbers. I mean, not the Bears, the Eagles numbers. I think he threw 52 passes, which is insane.
That is insane. Wow.
Yeah.
I think he completed about 30, which is not too bad given what was going on in that game, and we had 0 yards rushing. Look, against the Patriots and against the Detroit Lions, he threw over 75. He had over 75% completion rate. So he has started to hit his stride after those first 3 games where it was really knocking a lot of rust off. The protection has been better since then, I think, except for the run game. And you know what is just don't be fooled by the kind of what have you done for me lately stats of last year. The Panthers just tremendously regressed. Cam Newton was the NFL MVP 2 years ago. The guy, despite the narrative, can pass the ball.
So you talked about him knocking the rust off in those first 3 games. Let's talk about one of those games against the Buffalo Bills. They were able to keep the Panthers offense at bay, only allowing 9 points. It was a win for you guys and a 9-3 victory. But what can the Bears do to keep the Panthers under 10 points? Because that sounds like a winning formula to me, especially since the Panthers come into this game averaging 21.3 points a game.
Yeah, it's definitely the winning formula, it seems like, for any team, right? Is that if you can keep them under 10. I mean, I guess the crazy part is we scored less than 10 and somehow won that game.
Right.
So, I would say we kept them to 3. That's what it took to beat the Bills. You know, I think here, look, the Panthers won that game, and Cam Newton was sacked 6 times in that game. We've only won 4 games in his career as a Panther when there have been 4 more sacks, and that was one of them. So you want to have a problem or disrupt Cam is you get him on the ground, you get him feeling uncomfortable in the pocket, and what he will start to do is if he cannot get hot, like I said earlier, a momentum player,
right.
If he can't connect on a couple of passes early, sometimes he can fall into a funk that's really tough for him to come out of. Now, I think he's getting better at this. His receivers are playing better. You're going to have to do what Philadelphia did, but maybe even better, because the Panthers still scored 23 points against the Eagles, and we didn't run the ball at all. I mean, 0. Cam Newton we had 80 yards rushing. 10 of them came on a reverse, and 70 of them came from Cam Newton. So you've got, I mean, it's that he's a lot better. I think you're just going to have to get on those receivers, and that's it, man. You just get at Cam's feet. You start getting around his feet up the middle. Pressure up the middle can bother Cam just like anybody. He needs a big pocket. He's 6'5". He's giant. And when he takes a 5-step drop, it's like 12 yards. And yeah, so he needs this very large pocket, and it's not his fault. It's just his big ass body. And if he has to step into a throw, he needs some room. So get pressure up the middle, get after Cam, and hold that run game.
Yeah, it's actually pretty interesting. You talked about how you guys didn't rush the ball at all, and pretty much here in Chicago last week it was the opposite. We barely passed, and we were heavily reliant on the running game. But my question for you is sticking with offense, I want to discuss your struggles in the red zone, because on the year, you've been settling for a ton of field goals, and you're currently sitting 24th in the NFL with a 47.8 conversion rate in the red zone, scoring touchdowns less than 50% of your trips. Last week, you did a better job against the Eagles, scored about 66% of the time, 2 out of 3. Against an Eagles defense that is pretty good down there. But why have you guys struggled in the red zone? Is it due to being one-dimensional and pretty predictable once you get in that condensed field?
I think that's oddly, we have these 2 giant receivers in Kelvin Benjamin, Devin Funchess. Both are 6'4", 6'5", 230, 240-ish. And for some reason, we run passing plays in the red zone that do not take advantage of their size. What you'll get is you'll waste. It seems like the Panthers burn a play with a run up the middle that right now just isn't working. So if you can't, and they're trying to keep guys honest. Like, I understand that you can't just abandon the run. So you have to do it even when it's not working. But if it's not working at all, you really just burn a play. Then Cam Newton will have one play where it's off or something, and then there's like a sack, like, and all of a sudden you drove 80 yards, you're right on the doorstep, and then you get nothing. Maybe you get 3. So the Panthers, I think, there has to be a little different. The play calling has to take advantage of some of the size of the receiver on the outside. I like to see them attack towards the outside, the numbers a little bit towards the pylons, but they seem to like to keep the ball more in, and I don't understand why that is. But look, is the best way for Carolina to remedy that is to get Cam motioning out into like some bootleg. If you see Cam Newton in the bootleg, you're done. It's over, folks. It's a wrap.
Good to know.
I'm telling you, man. They just don't call it enough, and I guess they try to save these things, I think, too. So I think some of it's just been really poor execution at this point. You see the Panthers, they've put up over 20 points the last 3 games. So It seems like our offense is starting to click and get some things together. Oddly, though, we can't run the ball. But those first 2 games, I think, tremendously skew the numbers, 3 games. So, they just have to execute. And I think that's what NFL comes down to. I mean, it doesn't really matter in the play call if the guy drops the ball or if Matt Khalil falls on his face.
Exactly. Execution is a big thing in the NFL.
And we can relate to the lack of execution once you reach the other side of the 50. Same boat. No question about it. Brandon, let's transition over to the Carolina Panthers, their defense. And I know you have a question about their sack totals.
I do. Panther sack total has been top-notch so far this season. They have 20 on the year already. And my favorite Panthers player for a couple of reasons, Quan Short, because he went to Purdue, where I'm currently at, and he's from the same area code as me and Will, fun fact. He's already got 3 sacks on the year, and former Bear Julius Peppers already has 6.5 sacks on the year. Is there any one particular pass rusher that the Bears should focus on, or is this a team effort with a lot of stunts?
I think you got to focus on. I think it's those 2 guys. It's those 2 guys. And first, I thought I was cheering over here when you said my favorite player. I thought you were going with Julius Peppers because that's my favorite player of all time. And I know he did some damage there for you guys in Chicago. K1 Short, though, was amazing. What a talent he has turned out to be, and what a phenomenal person. I can't tell you, if you're going to give somebody a giant contract, I can't think of a better person to give it to than K1 Short. He's disruptive. He's just a force in the middle. I think he's probably in the top 3 defensive tackles in the league, outside of Aaron Donald, and then take your next favorite if you want to argue about it. K1 Short is up there each year. Star Latulele has been playing very well for us as well, which has helped a lot. And I think that, Peppers is 37 years old, and at this pace, he's going to have 37 sacks. He's got 6.5 sacks this year, guys. 6.5 already.
No, that's impressive. It's like he's timeless. He's ageless. He just keeps going.
Yeah, he is a basketball player on the football field, and he plays football like a basketball player. He doesn't even rush like all-out speed blitz guys. It's almost like he's driving to the hole with the basketball in his hand, and the quarterback is the rim, and he's just going to dunk it.
That's a great analogy.
I mean, you can see him. He gets a lot of these sacks where he moves down the line after things have already messed, where K1 Short has opened up a hole, like you said, and these stunts, and where things have just kind of started to go wrong. So watch K1. You got to stop K1 Short, and you got to stop Julius Peppers because without that, you're really asking Mario Addison. Right, yeah, I mean that's 50% right there in 2 players.
All right, keeping with
all the blitzes.
Exactly. Keeping on with your defense, when I think about the Carolina Panthers defense, especially over the past couple of seasons, I think of a unit that has the ability to create turnovers, especially interceptions. But this is not the case this season, as they're tied with 30th in the NFL with only 1 interception. Another problem that here in Chicago, I totally understand. We didn't have any until last week, against the Ravens. And I'm sure you find this number disappointing as well. But I want to know, from what you've seen, why has your defense been able to struggle getting those turnovers? Are they close, or are they just not playing as aggressive as they did in the past? What's going on here?
I think it's a lack of talent, in many ways in the secondary. Is that sometimes you got to have guys, if you want to get a lot of picks, you got to just have ball hawks. And there's just some guys that get them, and then there's other guys that just don't. And it seems like we got a bunch of guys that don't. I was listening to your guys. I downloaded your podcast, subscribed to you last week.
Aw.
I was actually preparing for this week. So this is kind of crazy. I'm on your show. I was listening to your podcast when you guys were going into the Ravens, and I felt like you said we got one, and it was like the first time since like 20. I felt like you guys since like June, like last year. That's what somebody said on the podcast, was like it felt like it's been that long. That's how it feels like for Panther fans, is like we just haven't had any. But the good news here is this, that the good news for us is that we've gotten off the field on third down a lot. So while we're not creating a lot of turnovers, which is not good, I mean, you want to have some opportunity for your offense to put up some good, easy points. We are getting off the field. But right now we have a secondary that is James Bradbury, second-round player in a second year from a school that nobody's ever heard from in Samford University. So, and he's our best guy. Kurt Coleman, we got a good safety who's pretty good, and he can be that guy. He's hurt right now. So it just seems like this is it's just a lack of talent, and that hasn't created the opportunity. But fortunately, Luke Kuechly, we got those guys a lot of time that can make it happen. And that's where our picks have come from, is they've come from linebackers.
All right, well, let's talk about a linebacker, and let's talk about perhaps a lack of talent on the field. Luke Kuechly, do you imagine that he actually gives it a go on Sunday? I want to know your gut feeling. And if he's unable to play, how does that change your defense and what it's able to do?
I think he does go. And the reason I think he goes is because I know that there was basically they handled this incident with kid gloves from the start when it comes to Luke Kuechly. They announced he was out with a concussion. It was probably more accurate to say he was in the concussion protocol, but story came out on Sunday that turns out he had a concussion, then he didn't. So he is in the protocol. He has been attending the meetings. He's been doing some light work. So it seems like he did not have a concussion. They were very concerned about it, given his history over the last 2 years. This would have been his third. He wears some crazy collar. Have you guys heard about the concussion collar he wears?
I've heard a little bit about it, but I haven't done a ton of research on exactly what that is.
So it looks like you see those people that listen to their phone and they have those things that hang around their neck that are USB, that Bluetooth. It looks like that on his neck, and it technically squeezes his neck a little bit and restricts the blood flow just a hair to where his brain swells. His brain swells a little.
Interesting.
So it doesn't rattle around. It's the most bizarre, crazy thing. But he has a concussion collar he wears, and that's how important he is to us. We got the top level NASA scientists taking care of things. And you know what is that this team? He's arguably the best linebacker in football. I know we can split hairs over a lot, but the guy is top rate. It's hard to find anybody that's going to be better than him week in and week out. So your defense is going to take a step back if he's not on the field. The good news for us is that while the guy who he's going to be a third-year player in David Mayo, he's not terrible. But we've got two other awesome linebackers in Shaq Thompson and Thomas Davis. So yeah, no, it hurts to get the heart and soul of your defense with Luke Kuechly, the leader. The guy that rallies the troops. I mean, he's when the team is playing bad, he's in there yelling in the huddle in a good, positive way, getting these guys pumped up. So you need him on the field. I think we can manage it, but I think he'll be there.
Awesome. Well, thank you for that insight there, especially with that concussion collar. And it's something that otherwise I might not have even stumbled across this week. I'd appreciate it. One final question. Well, it's a two-parter, and it's how I end every Get to Know the Opponent show. The first part is, in your opinion, why will your Panthers win on Sunday?
Because we're better than the last game. And is that we're 4-2 right now. We've beat some tough teams on the road. We've beat Detroit. We've beat New England. And I don't think that the Bears have anything tremendously – well, I think you guys have been surprisingly good. And I think that Trubisky is I think that, gosh, thank God he's on the field for you guys, and I'm interested, and I'll be asking you guys later on our show about this, is that but boy, he just throws those deep balls, and they're 20 yards past everybody on the sidelines. I mean, I think
too, huh?
he's still a rookie. and he's a rookie that had very little experience in college. So it's amazing. That shows you how good he is from Mike Glennon, or how bad Mike Glennon is. But I think this is, you got a rookie quarterback who got fortunate in the games the time he has played. I think that your defense could give us some problems up front, but I think that it's going to take Trubisky. I think we're going to try to shut down the run, and we're going to put this on Trubisky. And I think that if you do that to us, which we've said is the formula, I think I'll take Cam Newton MVP over Trubisky. And come on, can John Fox really call any more trick plays for his entire life? I think
that's
he's
more
run out.
But
that is the craziest thing. Every time I see John Fox with rookie players, John Fox is not a rookie coach, guys. He is not good at coaching up the youngins. He's good at managing veterans. And so when you see rookie players on the field like Tariq Cohen and then Trubisky, I'm like, come on, this can't be. John Fox must not be allowed in the offensive room.
Yeah, you never know. And I understand too, like here in Chicago, we've been going through a rebuild. We're trying to get younger. So we're kind of like last season, our hand was kind of forced to play a lot of rookies, a lot of undrafted rookies at that, which, it's helped with our talent here, our depth a little bit. But let's get back on track a little bit. Final part of that question is using your imagination. Why will the Panthers lose? Like, what will it take for Chicago to come?
I got to do that one too.
You have to.
Why would they lose? Because it's on the road, because it's John Fox, the old, their old ball coach, their old head coach who was here for a long time, and John Fox knows how to win games he shouldn't.
All right, well, I'll take that. I'm not going to complain. And hey, you have Ron Rivera, you have Greg Olson sitting on the sidelines, Julius Peppers. A lot of just familiarity between these two teams. It's actually pretty interesting when you sit back and think about it. But really, Tony, just thank you again for taking the time and giving us your firsthand account of the Carolina Panthers. I know our audience appreciates it as well. So again, thank you so much for joining us today.
Yeah, thanks a lot, man. Be sure to go check out our podcast, the C3 Carolina Panthers podcast. It's live at 9. You can just flip on over right after.
Exactly. Hey, the good job with the plug. That was my next question. So you already beat me to it. So one final thing for our listeners, if you like the show, make sure to leave a review on Apple Podcasts. And if you do, leave a Twitter handle. That way you're eligible to win a free year of Pro Football Focus Edge. And one more quick note, we did reach our goal of 85 reviews on Apple Podcasts. Hooray. We've been, waiting for this for a couple weeks now. And as promised, we are doing a free t-shirt giveaway this week. You have 1 week to enter. So to do so, just submit your email address at thebearsbros.com/giveaway. The link is below if you're watching on YouTube, and I'll make sure to drop it on the show notes on iTunes as well. And we're going to pick a winner a week from yesterday, so next Monday. So definitely enter for a chance to win a free The Bears Brothers t-shirt. Up next is going to be our weekly audio mailbag. So if you want to submit your question, leave us a voicemail, 872-240-4007. And on Thursday, we're going to have a full house as Nick, Brandon, and myself take a weekly in-depth look at our Bears, telling you exactly what the Bears need to do to come away with their second straight W for the first time since 2015. It's crazy, isn't it? But again, until next time, bear down, Chicago.